Modifiers. For both 3D.js and point cloud modes, we have the Modifiers menu. On here, you can access a series of modifiers that can help in editing and improving the performance of working with 3D.js objects. Immediately after importing a 3D.js object, it's advised to enable at least the camera cull modifier. I can see that we don't have this modifier currently with this warning message. If I press the plus icon, the selected object will be given the camera cull modifier that I can see in the modifier stack. If I toggle this modifier on and off, I can see that we go from 680,000 faces in the scene down to 89,000 faces in the scene. That makes updating faces and navigating in the viewport much more responsive than if the modifier was turned off. The settings in the modifier should match your current camera setup. If you're not using the default camera settings, if you've adjusted the focal length or your scene render resolution, you'll need to update those settings in the modifier. You can try using the auto setup button to do this automatically. If you find any faces that are floating between your main focus and the camera, you can remove these within the camera cull modifier by using the closer than and further than distant controls. If I increase the closer than distance, you can see that we start to remove any floating artifacts in front of the camera. You can toggle the visibility of the modifier by pressing its name, on or off. If you want to apply the modifier permanently, you can press the tick button, or you can remove the modifier by pressing the X. If a modifier has been applied or removed, you can re-add it by again pressing the plus icon. The decimate modifier can again be added with the plus icon, and this will let us remove a percentage of the total faces within the model. If I increase decimate to 50%, I'll be removing half of the faces from the object, and we can change the seed of which faces are removed with the decimate seed. We can mask the decimate effect to only affect a portion of the model using decimate masking. Here, we can specify an object. It can be useful to use the add wire sphere or add wire cube objects since they don't render. If I click add wire cube, a cube will be added in the scene at the position of the 3D cursor. If I place this over a part of my model, and I set this wire cube as the decimate object, I can see that only the region inside the object is being decimated. If I wanted, I could set it so only outside or by a distance greater or less than to the cube was decimated. Again, like our other modifiers, this can be toggled on or off, applied with the tick, and removed with the cross. The crop box modifier can be used to specify an object. Here I'm using my wire cube, and then we can remove points outside the crop object, inside the crop object, or by distance closer or further than the crop object's origin. Like the other modifiers, you can toggle the modifier's visibility by pressing the name, applying with the tick, removing with the X, or reapplying with the plus button. The color edit modifier will let you choose a color on your object and use that to delete faces. If I select this pink area of my object, I can remove faces that are equal to or not equal to this color. I can then dial in the selection using the hue, saturation, and value thresholds. If you want to remove faces that are particularly dark, especially if you've used turntable scanning and a white or black background, you can use brighter than or darker than a certain color. The remove by size modifier will remove faces based on their size. Often artifacts or unnecessary points have quite stretched edges, so remove by long edges can often clean these up and give a better silhouette. You can adjust the removal with the edge length threshold. Remove small faces will remove faces smaller than a certain threshold. This usually isn't necessary for cleanup, but can give quite cool animated effects. In point cloud mode, immediately after importing a point cloud, you'll see that the modifier menu is pretty empty. We can see point edit modifier is missing. This is the same message we see on the import menu after importing a point cloud. If I hit the plus icon, either on the import or modifier menus, I will now see the full range of edit modifiers for a point cloud. We can see that most of these are similar to the 3D modifiers with decimate, color edit, crop box, but we also have enable auto crop BG sphere and enable remove isolated points. Full 3D scans often include a sphere of points for the background. If you don't want this, you can try and use the enable auto crop BG sphere to remove those points. If I turn the modifier on, the points disappear. If you're not seeing them being removed automatically, you can play with the sphere threshold, or if you want to remove all points except the sphere, you can click invert. Remove isolated points will remove points based on their distance to their closest neighbor. If I find some points that are very sparse and not connected to other points, let's try the background, we can see that they disappear. And as I change the distance threshold, we're removing more and more points, but the most densely points, usually at the focus of your scan, will stay intact. At any point, you can apply these modifiers from the active point cloud menu if you have your point cloud selected by hitting apply. If needed, you can then re-add the modifiers and keep working. If you want to remove the modifiers, you can hit the trash icon. Or if you just want to disable or enable visibility, you can hit the screen. If you find at any time that the effects of any modifiers aren't updating, you can also try hitting the refresh button.